I think we should talk to our next caller.
I'm excited about this one.
This
I was
one,
looking at the monitor.
Listen, it's just for you, dude. Like, the universe has aligned. Our calls stay.
It's a wonderful time.
For you. It's David who's calling in from California. David, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hey, how's it going?
Going okay. How about yourself?
Oh, I had you on speakerphone. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, are you ready for round 3 or 4 or whatever it is?
Yeah, absolutely, man. What's going on with you?
Oh, not much. I was going to talk about. I just wanted to participate in the atheist church here because I haven't really been going to church myself very much since the COVID pandemic started. So this is my church too.
Yeah, we appreciate you being a little bit isolated. I know it sucks, but it's really important.
Yeah. Well, I'm still sane. So yeah, I just wanted to give you a chance because I didn't really feel like you were.
Well, David, let's give some context.
Versed in cosmology.
Let's give some context to this conversation. What specifically?
I'm going to talk about evolution.
Okay, yeah. So you want to talk about evolution, and you don't believe evolution has ever happened? Period.
Not the way that you claim. No.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Let's hear it then. Yeah. Why do you not think evolution happens the way that science broadly has claimed it happens?
Well, one is nobody's ever heard of it in history.
Well, that's not true. Yeah, I've heard of evolution, and I'm in history right now. So that's one strike, David. I don't know
about past history.
Right. Yeah, we have writings on evolution that go back hundreds of years. Even if you just look at Darwin, that was 200 years.
David, most people in human history haven't heard of computers either, but computers still definitely exist, right? So
we have different writings about.
Started with Darwin.
No, the evolution as like a science that people actually like started locking down and like really focusing on started with Darwin and Wallace's work, but. Honestly, leading up to our understanding of evolution, that was another like 200 years. That's like in the late early 1600s when you have like Steno, who is like, identifying tungstones as actual fossils. And then you had like the actual, the understanding of what extinctions and what fossils were completely shook what our understanding of biology was, completely changed our understanding of the natural world. So like this is something that's several hundred years in the making. And since Darwin wrote, on the origin of species back in the 1800s, we now have like 200 years of further, research into it, mountains and mountains of proof, evidence, observable experience. Like it's probably one of the most well-documented and tested theories in scientific history.
Okay, so you're claiming that since science has been advancing, that evolution has come to our knowledge.
Yeah, the same way that it would be about like quantum mechanics or any other thing. It was always there. We just learned about it, relatively a couple hundred years ago. Yeah. But as Dan pointed out, we just got computers pretty recently too. And yet the idea, the possibility, electrons were already around. Right. We just learned how to use them in a new way.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all the way down through my family, nobody's ever heard of any species changing or anything like that. That's what I'm saying.
Why should we care? No, David, why
anybody ever records that?
David, why should we care what your family thinks about evolution? Honestly, why? Why does that matter at all?
Because I'm related to Adam. You go all the way back to Adam, and there's no recorded history saying that evolution has ever occurred.
No recorded history of Adam either.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're making the claim, the Bible, are you saying the Bible doesn't talk about? Yeah, the Bible doesn't talk about a lot of things. That doesn't mean that they don't exist, right?
Well, do you believe in history?
Do I believe in history as a concept, as a social science? I mean, like, broadly speaking, yes.
Sure. Things have happened.
Yeah, things have happened.
You believe in some history. You don't believe in biblical history. You don't believe in any.
That's correct. I don't believe
basically all of it.
No, I believe in the same way with literally everything else, which is what we were talking about in the last call as well. I believe in the things that I have evidence for.
Right.
So, like, if you told me that George Washington was the first president of the United States, I would believe you because we have a tremendous amount of evidence proving that. If you told me that George Washington built a rocket ship and went to Mars, I would not believe you because we do not have evidence for that.
Did the Persian Empire invade, the nations of Israel several thousand years ago? Yes. And that's somewhat recorded in the Bible. Is it accurately recorded? No. But that as a historical phenomenon.
Yeah, you had one data
happened,
point there, yeah.
Right? Sure. But did we all come from Adam, for example? No. I don't
we
think
have
there's
no
evidence
for that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you believe in evolution, but we don't have any proof for it.
We have mountains and mountains.
That's like
proof.
believing in Santa Claus.
So I'm actually a biologist, and I specialize in studying evolutionary biology and bioanthropology. That's what I do for a living. So, we have mountains and mountains of proof and mountains of evidence for these things. I would be happy to, walk through them with you a little bit if you'd like to talk about them. I don't want to, just lecture you, but, I'd be happy to, share some.
I'm not claiming to know as much. I'm not claiming to know as much as you about biology. That would be ridiculous. I don't know as much about cosmology as cosmologists or astrophysicists, but I can still refute the Big Bang Theory.
Okay,
that's incredible. That's an incredible amount.
In order to make that claim, you would need to at least know the basics of it and be able to talk about it. I don't know anything about electrical engineering. I know zero about that. I would never want to be a part of an electrical engineering club that would have someone like me as a member. And yet, if you told me that this computer here can do some incredible thing, I would be a lot more likely to believe someone who is an electrical engineer than me if I told you, no, it can't, because I don't know anything about it, and therefore I don't think it's real. So, I'd be happy to talk to you about evolution. Can you maybe start by defining what you think evolution is? Maybe we can start there?
Well, I'm just saying, probably the greatest proof I think against evolution is if you just look at the species today, right? Well, it's a finished product, right? Everything is complex now. So
evolution is not finished at all.
Biology, everything is a completed.
It's not
complex system already.
It's not.
What do you mean by completed? Do you mean evolution has stopped, or we're as far as we're supposed to get?
Yeah.
No, that's not real.
Evolution. No, it never started. Hold on a second. Hold on. This is my evidence. Okay, gotta let me.
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. The claims of coral cannot adapt to changing saline in the oceans, or any other species. They're all protected under the Endangered Species Act because they can't adapt and they can't.
The reason why we have species protection acts for that, David, is because they can't adapt in the time frame that global warming, climate change has set as a precedent for us, okay? And that's not only true for right now, that's true in history as well. Species have died out because of global climate changes. That's why there's certain species that aren't around anymore, because of rapid changes in the environment that didn't give enough time for them to adapt. So that's not only historical, it's not only factual, it's quite historical. There's quite a precedent for that.
And we can literally watch with our own eyes in several species, yeah.
No, because you're claiming that things evolved over billions of years when the conditions were not perfect. So if they could evolve over billions of years when the conditions were not perfect, then certainly they should be able to survive now when the conditions
not within a generation.
What you need to understand is that, number one, two things that are really big here is that, number one, conditions were never perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. There's always what we call selection pressure. And selection pressure, the definition is a differential or a source of differential mortality or fertility, which is the fancy way of saying it's a thing, either living or non-living, in an environment that causes certain individuals to not be able to survive or reproduce. So when we talk about salinity in the ocean, or pick any other thing, right? If I have this ocean here that has X% salinity, and here's this species of coral that's just fine in that. If I slowly increase that salinity over the course of generation after generation after generation of coral, then the ones that can't survive aren't going to, and they aren't going to reproduce, and they're not going to pass along the alleles, the ability to do that. And however, the ones that are weird coral that can survive in this extra salty environment, they're going to have lots of babies that have their DNA that can survive in salty environments. And over the course of multiple generations, this whole population of coral is going to get better and better and better at surviving in salty environments, until to the point where now you could add more salt and it'll be just fine. And the important thing to remember here, the key to this metaphor here, is that, number one, individuals didn't evolve. No one coral just got better at eating salt. It's the whole population over the course of several generations that evolved. And number two, as they evolved into one environment, as they gained fitness, we would say, in one environment, they lost fitness in another environment. If you were now to desalinate the water and take all that salt back out, now the super salty coral would be at a disadvantage, and the graph would shift back in the other direction. So, like, this is something that happens over successive generations, over huge periods of time. What Dan was saying, quite rightly, is that anthropogenic climate change and things like that.
You don't have any evidence.
You don't have any evidence of what exactly?
You don't have any evidence of long periods of time.
Of long periods of time? So yeah, we very do. And there's a few of them, actually, that we can start with. You can go back to Steno's law of superpositioning, where we look at the layers of the geological strata and see that they are, in fact, stacked up. Those layers take a long time to deposit. So we can say, clearly, this thing up here is younger than this thing down here. Now we ask, how young, right? Even if we didn't have anything else past that, we can look at the fossil record and say, all right, so there was this animal, and then we go a few meters up, and now there's a totally different thing. It's like that right there, you don't need anything else. But if you want to talk about the actual ages, we have a tremendous amount of ways to test the age of the Earth. Not with, the probably the best and most robust one being radiometric dating.
Right.
We can get almost precise down damn near to the day. You know what I mean?
That's fiction. That's science fiction.
No, it's
radiometric
not.
dating.
Listen,
well, how do you think radiometric dating works?
Yeah. It's all science fiction.
How do you think it works? What do you think it is?
Science fiction.
What is it? How does it work?
Well, let me finish. Wait a minute.
No. We want you to actually respond instead of asking us another question for us to go on another 3-minute tangent and then you not respond to what we're saying. Because, David, it doesn't sound like you're listening to us at all. Here's the thing. Even before radiocarbon dating existed, we knew that the Earth was over thousands of years old. Like, we didn't even have a development of nuclear science and able to do that. One, because of the principles that Forrest just mentioned, but also, like, innumerable other ways that we can look at the age of things. Like that science, looking at how old something is, goes across many different fields of study. There's tons of evidence that supports this. You saying no, there isn't, and just plugging your hands in your ears, like that's not adding anything to the conversation.
No,
I haven't heard you engage in anything that we've brought to the table here.
You haven't let me finish the point I was making.
Well, we're asking you just to, if you're going to say that it's science fiction.
Dating.
Yeah, if you're going to say it's science fiction, we hope you would at least tell us what you think it is.
Okay, I'll cover that, but let me first finish the point I was making in the first place, and you kept talking.
We'll give you a brief moment.
I was talking about that the system has to be perfect, and that's the whole idea behind the claims behind science about the coral and about other animals that are protected species and all this other stuff, that the system has to be perfect.
You're wrong.
We already said it doesn't.
That's
perfection.
not how that works.
That's your claim.
No, it's not.
I study this claim for a living. You are wrong about the claim. That's not what we claim. That's not how this works. You aren't protecting
the coral and the endangered species.
Yes, we protect endangered species, yes, because human-caused intervention is destroying those species. When we talk about, like, dangers to biodiversity, there's an acronym, HIPPO, and that's human action, human population, invasive species, pollution, over-harvesting, and there's human population is the second one. Habitat destruction, that's right. Habitat destruction, invasive species, human population, pollution, and over-harvesting. Like, these are the things that destroy environments, destroy ecosystems, destroy species. We know that biodiversity strengthens ecosystems. We need biodiversity to survive because we are also animals living on this earth. We need this ecosystem to be strong. So that's why we protect these different species, because we want them to stick around, and our activities as humans is harmful to them. That's why we do it. It has nothing to do with perfection. There is no perfection.
You're only making my point. So
how?
The planet was designed for humans. Thank you for admitting that.
I didn't say anything even close to that.
Remotely anything near
what
that.
What part of what I just said means that?
Did that?
How?
Exactly what did I say that means the planet is designed for humans?
How? How, David?
So the system, okay, well, like for one, like the pH level of water, okay, we can only drink a certain acidic level of water, right? So it's obviously designed for life. It's not designed, it's not an evolutionary process.
So really quick question.
The coral exists in anywhere from 7.5 pH to up to 8.3 or something like that. So it's not like it takes billions of years. How do you change the pH of water? The oceans all have different levels. The oceans all have go anywhere from 7.5 up to 8.3. So
right.
to tell me that coral cannot survive in a minimal change is ridiculous.
Right. So really quick, if you have a puddle in the ground, like this is the old analogy that Douglas Adams came up with, right? There's a puddle in the ground. Does it make sense for the puddle to say, the ground was so perfectly designed for me to be here? Look, it's exactly the shape of me. It fits me perfectly. Or does it make more sense to say, there was a hole in the ground and the puddle formed there, right? That's the analogy. The earth is not made for us. We evolved here on the earth.
Yes,
the life that wouldn't have survived here on the earth isn't on the earth because it couldn't have survived here on the earth. The things that could survive here on the earth are here on the earth under the conditions of the earth. That's logic.
It's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that, and this goes into your radiometric dating point that you want to make, that the earth is definitely older than our own sun. Okay. And
how would that even make sense?
Any younger or older? There's no evidence that our sun is younger than any other sun. They're all the same age.
Except for the fact that there's a huge mountain of evidence that we can just look at other places in the universe and clearly see that they're much older than ours. But you haven't even answered the one question that we asked you. What is radiometric dating, David?
Well, I told you it's science fiction.
What is it?
Well, what is the process?
What are we saying that it is? What do we believe happens that allows us to tell the age?
I'm just asking. We're asking for a Wikipedia first paragraph summary. We're not even asking you to go into the specifics. We just want to make sure that you understand the concept.
Well, I understand how radioaction.
Okay. Well, then how does it work? What's the
decay? Okay.
Can you please
quick
tell us?
rundown.
Well, supposedly there's half-lives of the uranium-238 and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so
what's a half-life?
Supposedly there's half-lives of the uranium-238.
Half-life?
That's interesting.
If you can give me just the basic.
Well, first off, carbon is not you're using uranium-238 and assigning billions of years, but carbon, you can't use that to date anything supposedly more than like
50,000 years.
50,000 years or something like
50,000 years is the end of carbon-14 dating. But that's not the answer to the question, David. What actually is radiometric dating? How does it work? Give us the basics. You can answer it in 2 sentences. What are just the most basic, fundamental, what actually is the process of radiometric dating? What are we testing for?
Well, your claim is that suns exploded and formed heavy elements.
Okay, we need you to stop talking about what you think we claim, and we want you to answer the question. If you don't understand the basic principles of how the science work, how can you possibly critique it? How can you possibly sit here and call up this show and talk to a biologist and say everything in your field of science is absolutely wrong when you can't even give us a single sentence summary of what you're talking about? Honestly.
You won't be quiet.
We won't be quiet. Oh, man, that's amazing.
I'm going to be quiet for 5 whole seconds, David.
Go ahead, David.
What is radiometric dating? Go.
I just told you.
No, you didn't.
It's a claim that stars exploded and created radioactive.
That's not radiometric
stars
dating.
Exploding isn't involved.
All right, David, we've got to let you go because we have other callers that we need to talk to.
I wanted to ask him to define evolution, too. I don't think we could have done it.
Here's the thing. We're not going to get anywhere with somebody like David because David isn't interested about what you have to say.
Right.
And he's not interested in what I have to say. He's interested in trying to make us look foolish.
He heard somewhere on some person told him that radiometric dating doesn't work. And he was like, those are words. And now I am also going to say those words.
Right.
And I'm going to call a thing so I can say as many words as possible.
Right.
You haven't actually thought about what you're saying.
You know what, Forrest? Yeah. My family has never said that David from California exists.
I don't think he does.
So I don't think David actually exists.
You know what, though? Because when I know what David is when stars explode and something else. And that means that it's not real.
Right.